Hello, everyone. This webinar is being held by GDI Consulting and is solely devoted to answering any questions that you might have on OASIS Plus itself and its bidding process and proposal preparation. I will try to keep this to half an hour, but we'll have to see how many questions there are. Okay, so for those of you who are new to our webinars, and as a way of introduction, my name is Aband, and I am VP of Capture at GDI Consulting, one of the leading capture and proposal management firms for federal opportunities. I have over 30 years of experience in this field and have prepared or supervised the preparation of over 200 self-scoring proposals and over 800 traditional proposals or capture efforts. I will try to be short on everything here. So before diving into OASIS Plus questions, let me very quickly give you a short intro to our company for those of you who are new. GDI Consulting has been in business for over 17 years, and we have established ourselves as the premier self-scoring experts in the market. Just the fact that we prepared 97 successful proposals for our clients in OASIS Plus, that's the first round of submission, speaks for itself. So for the sake of time, I will leave the rest of the information to you to read if you need further information about our company. Of course, you can download this slide deck by clicking on the link under File on the right-hand side panel of your window. And if you have any difficulty in downloading that, just mention you need the slide deck on the chat system, and we'll send it to you after this session ends. Okay, so GDI Consulting has four main divisions, the four services we provide: proposal development, capture management, support services, and training. And we try to be a one-stop shop for all contractors working with the government. I will not go into the details of these. You can read these later on, but we support you whether you need a proposal, whether you need capture, whether you need special services like competitive intel, black hat exercises, price to win, or accounting preparation for DCMA, DCAA, audits, or CMMC certification support. And finally, any type of training that you might need, customized to your exact needs. Okay, and just last slide here, what we can actually provide for you on OASIS Plus. So we can provide free consultation. We have a free partnering hub that you can use to find partners, subs, and or be sub to others. We provide best fit reviews or pre-qualification assessments to make sure that you are qualified before you actually move ahead towards preparing the proposal. And then we have two full services. One is if you need a full proposal development, we put a dedicated team for you. We do score assessment and optimization, full proposal assembly, cradle to grave. And then we do multiple compliance checks, and then we help and audit uploading to Symphony, which is a task by itself. It's not a copy-paste type of work, submitting to Symphony. Now, for those of you who have your in-house teams, we can provide reviewing and auditing, 2 rounds of reviews, score optimization checks, and help and auditing on the uploading to Symphony. Okay, and finally, our contact info, my contact info, and my colleagues' contact info in case you want to contact us. If you have any technical inquiries and questions, please email me. If you want to set up a consultation call, as I said, it's free. Or you want to hear more about our services, please contact my colleague, Maroon Freedy, and his email is listed here as well. Okay, so we can now start with any questions that you might have. Please note that To make it simpler, just type in your questions either under chat or the Q&A. Either tab is fine, and I will go through them one by one, answer them based on the questions that you have provided. So I can see that there are already quite a few of them. So let me start on those. So let's start with a question from Susan. In one of your webinars, you mentioned that we need to have 3 to 5 cushion points. How should we decide whether to pursue OASIS Plus Phase II if we meet the minimum qualification score but cannot create a 3 to 5 point cushion above the threshold? Okay, so for those of you who have not been to our webinars, when we discuss cushion points, it means that, as you know, for OASIS Plus, the minimum score is 36 for small businesses and 42 for large businesses. Now, you don't want to be right there. You don't want to be at 36 or even 37, and you don't want to be at 42 or 43 if it's a large business. Why is that? Because you never know how the government is going to review your documentation and your submission, and they might deduct this point or that point, not accept this or that, and then you fall below that minimum threshold. So you need a few what we call cushion points to safeguard that even if they deduct a few points from you, you're still there. We call those cushion points, and our recommendation is that you provide 3 to 5 cushion points above 36. So if you're at if you're a small business, 39 to even 41 would be better. And if you're a large business, 45 or 46 would be better than just 42. Now, how do you do that? Coming back to Susan's question, if you don't have that, best way is to actually bring in a partner. So we recommend, even if you're at 36 or 37 by yourself, we still recommend that you bring in a partner who can boost your score a little bit more. So, you know, maybe they have a better contract. I mean, QP, one of the 5 major contracts that you have to bring to the table. Or maybe you're weak at FEPs, Federal Experience Projects, and they have 1 or 2, and they can boost your score there. So either way, our recommendation is that if you do not have those cushion points, bring in a partner, because at the end of the day, you want to win. You don't want to risk, falling below that threshold. Question from John. Since the 5 qualified projects can account for most of the total score, how should companies balance relevance, scale, integrated experience, staffing, and past performance when no 5 projects are perfect? Right. So at the end of the day, even though when you mentioned, the different sub-factors, we call them relevance, scale, integrated experience, and staffing and past performance, obviously some of them are much more important than the others. For example, relevance, you get 4 points per contract by itself. So it's perhaps the most important part. If you don't have a relevant contract, you should not use it. But at the end of the day, you should not try to judge and try to juggle these around in one contract. Don't do that. The best way of judging which contracts to use is to what we call profiling and then independently scoring each contract. Profiling means that you sit down and look at each contract independently, score it based on the scoring factors that the government has provided. So this contract brings you 7 points, the other 8, the other 9, the other 10, the other 7, and so on and so forth. And then pick the best 5. So maybe, one of the ones that you have picked is very bad in staffing in terms of score, but it has a better score somewhere else. But that's not important. What is important is the total score that contract brings to the table. So that's how you should actually judge. So don't try to compare these together. Just score each contract that you have and see which 5 will give you the highest score. Question from Steve. what is the best way to evaluate whether a marginally relevant contract should be used as a qualifying project if it scores well on scale but requires a JP3 relevant substantiation? Okay, so if something is relevant but you cannot prove it by itself, for example, the next code is wrong, and you need the JP3 relevant substantiation, that's no problem. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, or you don't get any less points if you're, substantiating through JP3, or maybe in terms of staffing, you cannot prove by documentation that you have used that many staff, but in the JP3 form, the contracting officer ticks that point saying that you use that many staff. That's fine again. So JP3, as far as using it, is great when you cannot actually prove by your own documentation. The only thing, obviously, is the hurdle of getting the contracting officer to sign off on it. So it's usually easier to, if you have the documentation yourself, for example, you have a contract that has the proper NAICS code, so you don't have to run around and chase the contracting officer to sign off on the JP3 form. That's the only problem of using JP3 form. Otherwise, as far as points or whether the government will decide between somebody who has JP3 form or not, that's irrelevant. You don't have to worry about that. The only worry is to get those contracting officers to sign the JP3 form. Okay, question from Adam. How should we handle projects that appear to fall between two domains, especially when the NAICS or PSC codes support one domain, but the actual scope supports another? Okay, so you can actually get a JP3 form. Actually, JP3 form, the main use of JP3 form is that. So because the government understands that many times a contract is relevant, but doesn't have the proper NAICS code or PSC code. So all you have to do is get your contracting officer to sign on that JP3 form, and you're good to go. So the answer for this question is that if the scope supports the domain you're going after, you can get the contracting officer to sign off on it. Now, at the same time, you can use that contract with a proper NAICS code if it's relevant towards another domain. But remember, if it's a $500,000 contract annually, and you say, hey, I did this for example, facility clearance, and for some reason also did it for technical and engineering, then the government might question you, even though you have provided the proper documentation, but because that $500,000 annual is supposed to be towards the main subject of the contract. Now, if you're using it for two domains, you might run into a problem. Per experience, I've seen companies that have actually gone and done that. So they actually were awarded both. But it's a risk that you have to consider. Okay. Question from James. How much risk should an offer accept when CPAR's ratings are incomplete or not clearly above satisfactory across all sub-factors? Okay, so you don't have to be above satisfactory across all sub-factors. The average of, say, usually there are 5 sub-factors. The average of them should be above satisfactory, not all of them. So maybe one of them is satisfactory, or even one of them is below satisfactory, any of those below. The way you do it is that you turn each of these into numbers. So exceptional is 5, very good is 4, satisfactory is 3, and then so on and so forth, 2 and 1. And then you add them together, divide by the number, and that's the average. So that's how you calculate it. So if you have them, that's good. And when you say incomplete, if you mean you've got an NA on some of the sub-factors, that's fine. That's understood. That just doesn't count. So if only 4 sub-factors are used, you divide to get the average, you divide by 4, not by 5. I hope I answered your question, James. Amanda, we are pursuing multiple domains. Then should we optimize each domain independently, or should we build one overall contract selection strategy that balances probability of award across all domains? No, I recommend that you consider each domain separately, because it doesn't matter whether you're, they're not going to look whether you were awarded on one domain and then not award you on the other domain, or vice versa. So optimize per domain independently and then move forward. Okay, question from Brett. Our company currently has a contract as JV, which has since expired. We want to add domains. Do we need to apply using the new JV we created? Will pricing will be required? Also, will the existing contract remain in effect even though the JV is expired? Okay, so when you say has a contract, I'm assuming that you have a contract as a JV on OASIS Plus. Now, let me discuss this in different ways. First of all, if a company is part of a JV and has submitted a proposal, and they are going to submit another proposal solo, that's fine, they can do that. But remember that you cannot use the same contracts that you used in your submission as a JV. So in the JV, if you were one of the members and 2 of the 5 QPs were from you, now that you're going solo, you have to submit 5 contracts that should not include those 2 that you used previously. I'm talking about the same domain, obviously, and same track. So if you're 8A, say, the JV was 8A, now you're going 8A, and previously you were going for technical engineering, and now you're going for technical engineering. If either of those change, in other words, you're going from a different track, maybe hub zone or total small business or whatever, or you are going for another domain, what I said with regards to not sending the same contracts doesn't stand. That just stands if you're going for the same domain, same track. Now, putting that aside, if the JV has expired since then, I recommend that you notify the government that the JV has expired, because if it's an expired one, you cannot execute contracts, task orders with it. So best thing is to notify the government that it has expired, and then submit solo, and you have an open hand there to actually go for any tracks or domains that you want. Let me see, you had many questions in here. Will pricing be required? Yes, pricing is required. So there's a form, you have to fill out LCAT pricing, labor category pricing for 20 categories. But it's fairly simple. Remember that you have to be below a specific maximum that the government has actually published. So you have the list. You know what the maximum the government accepts is. You just have to be below that. But you have to actually put in all profit and G&A and all that into it. So it's fully burdened. I hope I have answered you. If not, continue to ask more questions. Okay, question from Rich. How should small businesses decide whether to pursue only their socioeconomic track or also pursue total small business and unrestricted tracks? Good question. Many small businesses miss this. If you're an 8A, hub zone, STVOSB, or WOSB, those are the 4 different tracks of special set-asides, you are a total small business, but you must have submitted a proposal for it. Otherwise, if If they issue a task order and say this is for total small business only, you cannot submit a proposal for that task order. You have to have submitted a separate proposal for that. So many did not do that in the first round, from what I hear. So if you're one of those four, 8A, HubZone, STV, OSP, or women-owned small business, you must also submit for total small business so you can take advantage of it. And it's very easy. I mean, you can use the same proposal. You just have to submit for total small business. Now, unrestricted is something else. Again, many small businesses actually participated in unrestricted as well. Why? Because then they could actually participate in those unrestricted submissions, and they would see those task orders. Now, when you're doing your assessment of what your score is, that's the way at least we do for our clients, and we assess that they can get above 42, considering, of course, the requirements of large business. We do recommend to them that, hey, go for large business, for unrestricted as well. So you have to assess yourself based on the requirements of unrestricted. Obviously, there are different. For example, if the average contract value, annual contract value is usually 500K for small business in most domains, for large business is 1 million. So you have to consider these differences. But if you're above 42, we do recommend that you go for it. Okay, question from Claire. What are the practical risks of relying heavily on subcontractor or commercial experience for QPs, even when the solicitation allows it? Okay, so OASIS Plus, getting awarded on OASIS Plus is fully based on score, nothing else. So if a company brings in 5 QPs, all of them commercial, and gets the points, gets above 36 or above 42 for large business, that's it. You're awarded. So at the end of the day, they're not going to look whether those, contracts were commercial or, or from a sub or from yourself. So it has no bearing. At the end of the day, the score is the king. So you want to be above 36 or 42, whether you can do that through subcontractors, through your own contracts, through your commercial contracts, do it. There is no, risk involved there. Question from Andy. What should a compliance review team check first? Eligibility, scoring, logic, document naming, forms, signatures, or Symphony upload structure? Okay, so if you have participated in our webinars, you'll see that compliance is a major issue in these self-scoring proposals. And it's not a one-time thing that you do at the end. You have to do it multiple times through different stages. In our company, we have 3 stages. Sometimes they call it 4 stages if you consider uploading itself as a stage to Symphony. So first stage is assessing the different contracts you have and coming up with the best ones and your final score. Second stage, this is how we do it. Second stage is to actually put the proposal together, prepare the documentation, highlight, tag, things like that. Third stage is to do testing, compliance tests, review tests, and everything. And fourth part, or the end of third, is the actual upload to Symphony, which you do test again, review and for compliance. Now, for each of these stages, you have to do reviews and compliance checks. It's not that you do the review and compliance check right at the end just for Symphonies at the time of upload. You do it when you're actually reviewing the contracts to make sure that the requirements are met. You do it when you're putting the proposal together to make sure that in form and format you're doing it properly, in content you're doing properly. And then in the third stage, you actually go through the entire thing. It's like a red or gold team review, the traditional one, when you check everything. And then even for Symphony, what we usually do is we have a pre-submittal checklist. You provide reviews there. Once you submit, then you have a post-submittal review check. If you want to make sure, that's one of the things we do. We actually download everything that we have uploaded once to make sure that we have uploaded the correct documents. That's the minimum. But we also have to make sure, for example, that once you upload everything, you are getting the correct scoring. Many times you upload everything and Symphony calculates the score, and you see that the score that it's giving you is something different from what you expected. That's why usually submitting to Symphony takes 2-3 days for preparation of the documentation that you have to upload and everything. So to answer you, first divide your proposal into different stage, proposal preparation into different stage, and then do the compliance reviews for each stage. Okay, I see that Brett has another question. In terms of the adequate accounting system, we have a DCAA form from 2013. Is that acceptable? That's over 10 years old, so I don't think, Brett, that is acceptable. You probably have to renew that. But you know that that's not mandatory. You just get points for it. Otherwise, I mean, it's not a no-go type thing. You just don't get the points for the adequate accounting system. Okay. Tom, how should the company determine whether it is better to prime with partners or become a subcontractor on another team when we only have 1 or 2 strong eligible contracts? Okay, so it depends on your networking, Tom. So if you have a number of companies, all of them, have one contract or 2 contracts, and they prefer to be subs, you might have just 1 contract and they become your subs. That's fine. So, it's acceptable by the government that you have, for example, 4 different companies, each bringing 1 contract, yourself 1, that's 5 contracts, 5 QPs. That's totally acceptable. And for FEPs also, maybe all the FEPs come from your subcontractors. That's fine again. So it all depends on your networking. If you have good companies, you know them, that they can become your subs, obviously I recommend that you become a prime. But if you don't have that, then go and find a prime and be your sub. Obviously you have to market yourself and you market the contracts you have. So you have to actually do this, my suggestion, you do an assessment of the points that your contract or contracts bring to the table for the prime. And that way you have a good chance of actually being part of their team. Question from Carla. We have a mentor-protege JV. How should the team decide which contracts should come from the protege versus the mentor to maximize both eligibility and scoring? Okay, so again, score is the king. So if all the contracts from the protege will give you a higher score, that's the way to do it. If all the contracts from mentor give you a higher point, that's the way to do it. But you remember that at least one contract must come from the protege. So maybe 4 of them can come from the mentor, but 1 of them must come from the protege. But considering that requirement, everything else is up to you how you decide. At the end of the day, as I said, the score is the king. So decide that. As I said, independently score each contract, both the mentor's contracts and the protege's contracts, and then see which one gets you a higher score. Use those. Question from Ben. And remember one thing, sorry, going back to Carla, if the mentor is participating as unrestricted on OASIS Plus, there is no restriction on using those same contracts in the mentor protege JV small business submission. So because it's a different track, it's considered a different track. So maybe you use one contract from protege and 4 contracts from the mentor under technical and engineering 8A, just an example. Then the mentor is going for unrestricted technical and engineering. They can use those same 4 contracts, and there is no restriction there. Okay, Ben. So how should offerers calculate annual contract value when a project has irregular obligations, option periods, partial year performance, or a major modification late in the contract? Okay, so there are a number of rules involved. First of all, for the best way that will give you the least hassle is to look up FPDS, and in parentheses, FPDS is now part of SAM, so it's not working by itself. So fpds.gov is no longer working. You need to go to SAM to get those information, but it's still, sort of FPDS. So you get your contract information from SAM or FPDS, when the start date was and when the finish date will be or was, if it's finished. That's the best way of proving it. So you don't have to actually attach any documentation to prove it started here and it ended here, and this was this modification, that was that modification. None of that is needed. Just use contract start date and contract finish date that is stated on FPDS or SAM.gov, and that's acceptable. So that's how you actually calculate the start and the end of the contract. And then the same issue is with the amount obligated. So if it's a finished contract, look into the contract's FPDS printout on what the total value obligated was, pick that. If it's ongoing, again, see what FPDS, I'm referring to FPDS to make it easier instead of SAM, and see what the total value will be on FPDS and use that. So, and then calculate the annual value. So the annual contract value cannot, you can't take 1 year out of the total 5 years or 10 years and say, hey, this is my annual value. You have to take the entire duration divided by, or the other way, the entire value divided by entire duration. And the best way of doing that is by FPDS. Question from Paul. How should we handle an ongoing contract that has strong relevance and scale, but only recently passed the 6-month performance requirement? No problem, Paul. If it's past the 6 months performance, that's it. As I said, the government is looking for score, nothing about the content. So, maybe the past performance, you got everything satisfactory, just one very good. That's fine. You're above satisfactory. Maybe, you were just 6 months and 1 day. That's it. Per the, requirements, you have to have 6 months or more. So you had 6 months and 1 day. That's it. You get the point. So they're not going to go into the details. As I said, for example, is the contract yours or your subcontractors? Is the contract a federal contract from GSA, which is the OASIS Plus owner, or it was a commercial contract? None of these matter as long as you get the points. Question from Andrew. When using a collection of task orders as QP, as one QP, how do you define the start date, end date, scope continuity, and aggregation of value or staffing? Very good question, Andrew. So say you had a collection of task orders and you'd pick 10 of them, okay? Now, first of all, you don't have to have all the task orders under a IDIQ or a BPA. Maybe the IDIQ had 20 task orders. You want to only take 10. Just take the ones that, give you points. No point in, using the others that will not be giving you any points. Now, the way you calculate date then is the oldest task order up to the latest task order. Now, maybe out of those 10, you pick the oldest one, that's the start date. You pick the latest one, when it finished, that's the end date. The 8 different task orders within doesn't matter. That's the date. For example, staffing, you just add. So maybe the first task order had 1 person. The second one had 2. The third one had 4. So you add them together, that's the number of task order, staff used. So that's how you actually use the task orders. I hope I answered your question. We have run out of time. Let me answer 2 more. And then there are more questions still. I will try to answer by email. Question from Andrew. That's again, Andrew. How should companies decide which task orders to include or exclude from a collection of task orders when some help the score and others may weaken relevance or documentation clarity? Just don't use them. I mean, you don't have to use them. That's it. As I said, maybe you had 20 under that IDIQ. Just use the 10 that are relevant. Question from Jamie. If one contract supports several scoring factors but has weak past performance documentation, when should it be replaced by a lower scoring but cleaner contract? Okay, weak past performance does not exist. Either you do have the past performance or you don't. So either you're above satisfactory or you're not. That's simple. If you are below satisfactory, or if you're actually satisfactory or below, don't use that contract. As simple as that. If it is just a little bit above satisfactory, that's it. Good to go. So, I mean, that's how you actually assume. But at the end of the day, as I said, don't look at these. Look at the numbers. Look at the score for each contract by itself, and then compare the total score each contract brings to the table. Last question from Jeanette. What is the best process for reconciling a self-score spreadsheet with the actual substantiation documentation before submission? So, first of all, you should actually create a number of checklists to make sure that you actually, check everything. We have about 9 different checklists that we use in our company when going through OASIS Plus. Secondly, as far as the spreadsheet, this might not be your question, but I did want to mention it. One thing that we see has helped is that we create a sort of a table of contents page on the documentation that we submit, and in it we say, hey, page 12 is the proof for this. Page 18 is the proof for that. So it's like an index. So that can help. And finally, when you submit, Symphony calculates your score automatically, but it might, and in most cases is different from what you have calculated it on your self-score spreadsheet. You have to sit down slowly and see where you went wrong on submitting or uploading the document and try to correct that. So they're in different places that you have to actually put in these points. Okay, we are out of time. Sorry, 10 minutes late. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this webinar. We are, just for your information, we are holding a webinar on NASA opportunities in 2026 and 2027, tomorrow and day after tomorrow. I mean, Wednesday and Thursday. So if you're interested, please register, and we'll be seeing you there. If not, if I have not answered any questions that you have, please email me. I'll be glad to answer any questions, any technical questions that you have, either through email, or we can jump on a call and I will answer all of your questions. So thank you again for participating in this Q&A session. And I certainly hope that you actually get awarded on OASIS Plus. As I mentioned, if you want help from us, just email us, let us know, and we can support you on getting award on OASIS Plus or other opportunities. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.